Hey folks, today we're looking at the Airfix Sherman Crab Tank in 176. This is a nice little set in fairness, very simple, nothing overly complicated. Basically it's a mine roller or mine flail tank for basically defeating mines and clearing a path for armour and infantry to advance. This would have been one of the Hobart funnies. I'm sure you're familiar with those. You can Google that anyway at your leisure if you're not. Although the design itself, I think, goes back to a South African major. I think his name was Detroit. And the principle was kind of a rotating drum which was fixed to a mechanism applied to the tank, and obviously then you drove forward with the roller flailing away, and it would detonate the mines. Initially, this was used on other different types of tanks, such as the Valentine and the Matilda. But obviously, with the prevalence of Shermans, obviously it would have been put onto that eventually, and that's what we're most familiar with, I suppose, really. So anyway, the Airfix set itself. It uses the old Sherman tank from Airfix, so nothing particularly new there. And basically, Airfix have just provided a sprue for the mine flailing mechanism itself to go with that particular tank, and you kind of put it onto it then, basically. So the box itself, as you can see, nice little bit of artwork there. It does what it says in the tin, as I say. Little illustration down here of the tank itself, and the usual kind of Airfix packaging. Sticker there from the supplier I got it from. Usual warnings and bits and pieces. Umbral colours recommended, 1 flying hour, and both ends of the tank, or both in the box, are fairly straightforward. And you have the usual details about the Airfix Club and so on and so forth on the back, and the various warnings that you'll get. As I always say, don't eat the tank. Fair enough. Kind of keep parts away from kids that are 0 to 3 years of age, and kind of suitable for kids of 8 plus. I'm probably old enough to play with this. I say at this stage now in my 40s. So, anyway, the box itself. That's it. Nice little Airfix box, who's standard fare. Let's have a look at the contents. I have them taken out here for you so we can have a little look. You'll get the usual paraphernalia about the club, and you'll get the instructions. So Sherman Crab Tank gives you the usual blurb about that there. Fair enough. What I do like about these newer Airfix instructions is they're actually nice and large. You can see there, step 1, your wheels and rollers, bits and pieces down along, your hull, and so on and so forth. As you can see, if you're familiar with the Airfix Sherman, nothing new there. Very, very straightforward, as I always say. Kind of vinyl tracks. I advise you to heat them to seal them, although I always super glue them, to be honest. And I kind of glue them into the wheels as well, just to get a bit of slightly more realism going in there as best I can. This is the instructions, of course, for the flail mechanism. As you can see there, nothing particularly exciting. Found it a little bit awkward to fit here on this. I had to kind of trim it, and it's probably not exactly as the instructions would have me do it, but in this little area here, so I kind of had to trim it with a knife and that to get it to fit in accordingly. I think you're supposed to maybe bore a hole or something here. I don't know. It didn't really work out so well for me as the instructions would have indicated, but I managed to get it done in my own special way. So that was that. Nice colour painting and decal guide here, I must say. I like the fact that they're doing them in colour these days. Although the black and white was easy to understand as well, it just looks a bit better. 3 colours indicated, 86, 53 and 113. These are Humbrol colours, of course, as always with Airfix, which is just as well, because most of my allied armour is done in Humbrol 86 from a long time ago, so I kind of just stick with it to kind of fit in with various units that I have kind of established for my wargaming, and that I probably wouldn't use 86 if I was doing this, if I was starting afresh, shall we say, but it's okay. It's probably a little bit light, perhaps, I think, the colour itself in comparison to any of the real world examples I've seen, but there you go. That's the colour they indicate, and it's the colour I'm using, so there you go. On the back of that, then again, various instructions, key indicator, that kind of stuff, all that kind of thing. Nothing particularly exciting, but anyway. So let's have a look at the sprue. So the first sprue, or piece of a sprue, or whatever we want to call it, is just the actual original Sherman itself. As I say, nothing particularly outstanding there. This is a very, very old kit. Well, the Sherman portion of it, it's been around since I'd say just after the Bronze Age, so it's even older than me. But at the same time, it's kind of a venerable old stalwart. I have several of these, and my young lad has several of these in our collection, and I'm sure many of you have also, and we probably made them as children as well. But nothing, as I say, particularly outstanding there. There's some of the hull sections, the side sections there as well. It's actually a very straightforward kit to put together. I mean, there's nothing miraculously bizarre or revealing or new about it. But it just goes together nice and handy. I mean, there are better kits out there, that's for sure. Better versions of Sherman's, has to be said. But as I say, this is a great little foundation for any converting or anything you wanted to do. As I say, it might be a little small in comparison to some of them because it's 176 as opposed to 172. But you know, most of us have several of these in our collections, and you know, there are better kits out there for sure. But this one does the job fine. And this is the sprue for the flail itself. As you can see, the chains, as these would have been, are done in a kind of. It's supposed to give the impression that the thing is actually moving. It's actually in use. So the sculptor has decided to do them in a rather straight sort of a format there. I think that's a little bit lazy. I know he was probably doing it from a perspective of just ease of sculpting and molding and all the rest of it. However, it would have been nice if they had been done maybe in a sort of a more realistic fashion, shall we say. But having said that, I mean, it gets the job done. It's I only use it for wargaming, so it's not that important to me. I was considering maybe taking these off and using some small chain from a kind of a jeweler's type necklace or something like that. But I decided, look, it was just too much messing around. I could also have used heat to manipulate them a little bit differently. But again, I just decided, look, for the sake of it, it's only for wargaming, and it's not something that I would actually use in a wargame very, very often. I am putting together a unit of 79th Armoured Division. I think it's 30th Brigade thereabouts. But anyway, so these will have to do for the meantime anyway. The way that as you saw in the instructions, the way that the roller section here goes together, I think is a little bit awkward, to be honest. Could have been a bit easier, I thought, but look, it does what it does, and it's okay. So here's the kind of the main mechanism of the unit itself here, and that is basically the arms there, which give it the kind of extended crab format, and the various mechanisms that are there with that also. As I say, I'm using this for rapid fire, and this is, if I can just pick it up here, this is the supplement I'm using by Colin Rumford, and in this it says that you need 3 Sherman flails for a mine clearing squadron. Well, I'm using 2, and I'm using my Churchill A.V.R.E, which you may have seen a video on. If you haven't, please have a look at that and like and subscribe and all the rest of it, because that's an interesting kit also. But this is the guideline I'm using for my Wargames unit construction, and that's basically what I'm utilizing there. So let's have a look at the tank itself. First of all, let's have a look at the vinyl tracks. Quite supple. I like the fact that they're less plasticky, for want of a better term, than they used to be in the old Shermans, and they have a nice kind of a grey. Kind of takes the paint a bit better, actually, I must say, this vinyl. But and it's a little bit easier to manipulate. It doesn't kind of fold back and you're trying to glue it, but it's all right. And the decals there, which you can see there, which is 79th Armoured Division. Actually, it states in the instructions that it U.S. Army or something, but obviously 79th Armoured was a British formation, unless they were sent to deal with stuff for the Americans on D-Day. I don't know, but it might be a mistake on Airfix's part or just on mine. But end of the day, nice little decals there. You can see the unit markings, and you can see the bull's head. If you have seen what is his name, David Fletcher's video on tank chats for the Tank Museum, he's actually standing beside this particular tank, and those markings are on it, and he gives a nice little chat about the various Hobart funnies, tanks that were used in the 79th Armoured Division. That's the decals. I used a little bit of Humbrol Decalfix to apply them because I was using it to deal with some of the atrocious decals I had for my Churchill A.V.R.E or A.V.R.E assault vehicle Royal Engineers with the bridge and also the Esky A.M.R.C.R Churchill, which were in pieces. So I was doing them at the same time, and I utilised the Decalfix as well. Decalfix is okay, but to be honest with you, the newer ones, I think newer decals, I suppose, really you're probably okay with a bit of warm water. So I will be using just warm water on these to apply the decals, and then maybe putting the Decalfix over it just to provide a little bit of extra fix on that. So that's the decals. Now the tank itself, if I can just untangle it from the sprue here. This is my almost finished model there. I'm going to do a little bit more weathering. Some rust and chipping and bits and pieces I'm going to put onto it, and that is the mine roller, as you can see in front there. As I say, it doesn't look overly realistic because of the way that the chains are done. They look rather rigid, but at the same time it gets the message across, you know. You can see there it has the main 75mm gun, it has the coaxial machine gun in the turret, probably 30 cal or 2 or 3 perhaps, and then it does have a hull mounted machine gun, but I'm not sure how practical that would be, or if it was ever even used in combat. Perhaps it was, I don't know. Markings there, as you can see, it has some markings on the side there. It has the divisional flash and so on at the side, or at the back should I say, and similarly there on the front of the roller itself. So that's basically that. The figure that's with this doesn't actually come with the kit. This is a matchbox figure that I have converted. It is one of the officers from the British 8th Army set from Matchbox, and I've taken his head off and applied the head of a Matchbox NATO paratrooper to give a kind of a beret look, which would have been kind of the headgear worn by the tank regiments and that. And any pictures I've seen, they generally are wearing this. They did have some protective headgear as well, but generally speaking, any images or footage I've seen of the period, predominantly they seem to be using the black beret. He's also wearing kind of a leather jerkin, which seems to be quite indicative of the period and also of that particular unit. Again, a lot of the tank guys, the officers or maybe the NCO, whoever was in charge of the tank, seem to have one of those. So that's that. But as I say, very straightforward. It does not do much more than what it does there, as you can see. So obviously this will be clearing a path for my British Armoured Forces in my next wargaming scenario when myself and the young lad manage to set up the table again. So that's basically that, guys. It's a very straightforward little kit. A nice kit. I like it, to be honest with you, even despite its discrepancies and its maybe inaccuracies and a few little issues here and there, but it went together relatively okay. As I say, just fitting the actual piece itself to the side down here, I found a little bit awkward for some reason. Probably me rather than the kit. I was in a bit of a hurry doing it, and really I should have taken my time. But that's that. So basically, guys, if you'd like and subscribe, the young lad and I would love that. He always loves to see how the view counter rises every week, and the odd subscription that's added. And he'll be along with a review himself fairly soon. We're awaiting what is it? M18 Hellcat from Armourfast, which are newly released, so he's going to do the build on that and assist in the video presentation. So anyway, you might tune in for that one. So that's basically it, guys. I'll just move this out of the way so you can get a final look at the box and box art there. That, again, as I say, is the Sherman Crab tank by Airfix in 176. Yes, there are better models of this out there in resin and so on and so forth. But, as I say, this is a nice, cheap and cheerful way to get one of these on your Wargames table or on your model display shelf. And it's well worth the investment. It was quite cheap. I had one of these for a long time, which is the one that's already made. And this one I picked up for next to nothing. So, from that perspective, one of our squadrons for rapid fire is complete, and we'll move on to the next project fairly soon. So again, guys, if you'd like and subscribe, that'd be great, and we'll talk to you in the next couple of days with a new video. All the best. Talk to you then. Bye now.